Good morning, club members. We digest world-class journalism and talk it through in plain English. Here are 5 stories worth your time. HP, Asus and Acer have started buying Chinese memory chips for their laptops. An unprecedented global shortage of memory chips has forced computer companies to search everywhere for components. The sudden growth of artificial intelligence infrastructure is consuming a massive portion of available memory. That intense demand from data centers has left standard computer makers struggling to find basic parts. Rising component prices have pushed manufacturers to increase notebook prices by several $100s. Market researchers expect total computer shipments to drop by more than 11% this year. To keep their assembly lines moving, leading PC brands tested memory chips from China's CXMT this summer. They are now placing limited quantities of these chips into budget notebook computers. For now, these specific models are only being sold in markets outside the United States. The computer brands are handling these new orders with great caution. 3 major memory producers, Samsung, SK Hynix and Micron, dominate over 90% of the market. Because memory is scarce, computer makers don't want to anger the suppliers they depend on most. PC companies are taking a quiet and low-key approach so they don't lose their primary allocations. Geopolitical sensitivities add another hurdle for American brands. The United States government placed CXMT on a list of firms linked to the Chinese military. The Chinese memory producer has denied those claims and avoids direct trade sanctions. Still, buying from CXMT remains a politically sensitive decision for Western tech companies. Supply from CXMT is also tight because the producer prioritizes Chinese customers like Huawei. Despite these limits, this adoption marks a major breakthrough for the young Chinese chipmaker. CXMT recently listed on the Shanghai stock market, and its market value surged rapidly. Computer makers have managed to secure central processors, but they desperately need matching memory. That urgent search for components opened a rare door for CXMT to enter global supply chains. It demonstrates how a severe supply crunch can reshape established trade patterns in technology. The major question remaining is whether these Chinese chips will stay in global laptops once supplies normalize. Moving on from laptop memory chips, our second story takes us to South Korea. The country's president, Lee Jae-myung, tied his political future directly to the stock market. As a former retail investor, he urged citizens to move wealth from property into equities. He promised that the main stock index would reach 5,000 points by 2030. To build trust, his administration introduced shareholder protections that won praise from investment groups. For a while, his plan worked much better than expected. A global boom in artificial intelligence drove record profits for giant chip makers. Profits surged at major tech firms like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix. By June, the main index raced past his goal, reaching nearly 8,000 points. President Lee remained publicly bullish, telling reporters that South Korean shares were still undervalued. His regulators went further, opening the door to far riskier financial products. In May, the government approved single-stock leveraged exchange-traded funds for the very first time. Within weeks, everyday investors poured over $10 billion into these high-risk bets. Many borrowed heavily to amplify their potential gains. Then, the global tech sector turned, and share prices crashed suddenly. The main index plummeted by nearly 40% from its June peak. Thousands of buyers faced urgent demands for cash from brokerages as their investments collapsed. Younger workers in their 30s were hit hardest, seeing home savings vanish in days. That financial pain is now causing a serious political headache for the government. President Lee's approval rating has fallen to 44.5%, near its lowest point. Regulators publicly expressed regret over allowing such volatile products into the retail market. The finance minister has promised fresh efforts to improve how local capital markets operate. The trouble with tying political success to share prices is clear. When markets rise, politicians gladly take credit for creating wealth. When markets fall, furious voters blame the leader for promoting a frenzy. Representative groups for small investors say their members feel deeply betrayed. Many are already pledging to vote against the ruling party in future elections. The next National Assembly election is not until April 2028. Even so, President Lee has learned that building political support on market momentum carries huge risks. Moving on to our third story, we leave South Korea's crisis to look across the sea. Security experts usually organize China's military options against Taiwan into three main ideas. The first idea is a full amphibious invasion to seize the island. The second is a heavy bombing campaign against major cities to force a quick surrender. The third is a traditional naval blockade to starve the island into submission. All three options are huge, expensive gambles for Beijing. An invasion requires landing troops against well-prepared defences. A traditional naval blockade creates another big problem. Chinese ships would have to stop and search foreign cargo vessels in open waters. That risk could easily pull international powers like the United States into the fight. However, military analysts have highlighted a fourth option that gets far less attention. They call this strategy a blockade by fire. Instead of sending troops or stopping ships, China would launch targeted missiles at Taiwan's ports. The target list would be quite narrow. Missiles would focus strictly on port infrastructure, such as cargo cranes, docks, and fuel depots. Studies suggest that a few hundred ballistic missiles could knock out these key locations. Foreign ships could still travel through the surrounding waters without any interference. Global trade routes to places like Japan and South Korea would continue as normal. Cargo ships could even sail right up to Taiwan's coast. Yet once they arrived, they would find nowhere to unload their containers. This distinction matters enormously to Beijing. By avoiding direct attacks on foreign ships, China keeps the destruction limited to Taiwanese assets. That allows Beijing to claim the operation is entirely an internal matter. It makes it much harder for foreign governments to justify stepping in. Using only a few hundred missiles also leaves China with plenty of weapons in reserve. Those extra weapons would act as a powerful deterrent against outside interference. For Taiwan, this scenario presents a very difficult challenge. The island depends on international trade for almost all of its energy and supplies. Buying expensive missile defense systems might not protect every dock from damage. Instead, experts argue Taiwan must focus on surviving the disruption itself. That means storing vital supplies and building ways to repair damaged ports quickly. Whether Taiwan and its partners are ready for this quieter form of pressure remains uncertain. Moving on to our fourth story today, we turn from military strategy to corporate boardrooms. A British pharmaceutical titan is reportedly planning the biggest drug deal in decades. AstraZeneca is in preliminary talks to merge with American rival Bristol Myers Squibb. Together, the combined company would be worth nearly $400 billion. That would mark the largest pharmaceutical merger since the year 2000. The chief executive of AstraZeneca, Pascal Soriot, built his reputation on dramatic battles. 12 years ago, he saved the firm by fighting off a £70 billion takeover. At the time, he convinced shareholders that AstraZeneca could thrive entirely on its own. Now, he is hunting for a massive deal of his own. Why would two pharmaceutical giants want to join forces right now? Both firms are major powerhouses in developing advanced cancer treatments. Combining their businesses could generate huge savings in research and administration. Big drug makers have faced heavy pressure as patents on older blockbusters expire. Many pharmaceutical companies have responded by buying up smaller biotechnology startups, but creating a mega giant is a far bolder and riskier gamble. So far, stock market investors are reacting with deep skepticism. When news of the talks leaked, AstraZeneca shares fell by 9% in London. One major fund manager publicly declared that the deal makes no financial sense. Investors wonder why AstraZeneca needs a partner if its own research is strong. In the drug industry, a pipeline refers to new medicines moving through clinical trials. Buying a rival might suggest that internal drug discovery has slowed down. Government regulators present another major hurdle for the proposed deal. Because both companies sell top cancer therapies, combining them brings serious antitrust risks. Competition authorities usually worry that such mergers lower choice and raise prices for patients. Neither company has offered an official comment on the confidential talks. The immediate backlash from shareholders may well ruin the transaction before it starts. Pascal Soriot once convinced the world that independence was his company's greatest strength. Now, he must persuade anxious owners that an enormous merger is worth the gamble. After that massive pharmaceutical merger, we turn to our final story for today. Turkey has agreed to buy 20 Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jets from the United Kingdom. The deal is valued at about $3.3 billion. It includes spare parts, long-term maintenance, and complete training packages for Turkish personnel. This purchase marks a major effort by Ankara to modernize its air force. The Typhoon is a multi-role fighter jet built by a European consortium. Britain, Germany, Italy, and Spain jointly produce these advanced aircraft. For British defence contractors, this contract provides a substantial financial boost. Manufacturing is already underway across the 4 partner nations. Yet building these sophisticated warplanes takes a great deal of time. The initial 6 jets will not arrive in Turkey until 2030. The final deliveries will stretch out until 2032. Why is Turkey sending crews for training 4 years before any planes arrive? Modern fighter jets are complex systems that require specialized operational knowledge. Pilots and maintenance crews need years to master their computer networks and weapons. 10 Turkish flight instructors are arriving in Britain this month for flight training. The British Royal Air Force will guide them through the entire syllabus. About 100 maintenance instructors will follow them later this autumn. Ankara wants its teams fully prepared before the first aircraft touches down. However, waiting 4 years creates a tricky operational gap for Turkish defence planners. Middle Eastern security has grown increasingly volatile in recent times. Governments across the region are responding by raising their defence budgets rapidly. Turkey previously hoped to bridge the waiting period with second-hand jets from Qatar. A planned transfer of 12 older Typhoons paused earlier this spring. That leaves Ankara relying almost entirely on its new British order. The new jets will come equipped with advanced radar, air-to-air missiles, and mission pods. They will significantly alter the balance of air power across the Middle East. Still, 4 years is a long time to wait in a fast-changing region. The real test will be whether Turkey can maintain its air capabilities until then. That brings us to the end of today's stories. Thank you for sharing your breakfast with me, and I will see you tomorrow morning.